Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Connect with HSPC. Happy to have you here. My name is Melanie McGregor, and I am the chair of the Halton Suicide Prevention Coalition. Getting applause already. That's nice. So really excited for this interview today. So first of all, with me are Deb Melmer and Dara Eisner-Clancy, who are both fabulous members of our coalition. And I'm so happy to be interviewing a good friend of mine today, Clint Malarchuk, who lots of people I know have heard the name. Often what they hear it connected with is that he was a goalie in the NHL and he had a really horrific accident on the ice when his jugular vein was cut. Came back and played and has since moved on to other things and has become an amazing mental health advocate and an author. And he is joining us today from his barn down in Nevada. So nice to be crossing the border here to interview you, Clint. Thanks so much for being with us virtually today.
Well, my pleasure. You look great, Mel. It's been a while since we've been in person, so I just want to say that you look fantastic.
Oh, thank
You
you.
you haven't aged. That's what
We'll go
COVID
with
will
that.
do to you.
It may be the Zoom lighting, I'll take it though. So, great to see you too. So I mentioned that probably when people think of your name and think of your hockey career, it's that one incident back in '89 that you're most known for. But when it comes to talking about mental health and your mental health journey, there is a lot that you experienced before that incident and after that incident. So can you tell us a little bit about your mental health journey that you've been on throughout your life?
Yeah, for sure. As a kid, was I mentally ill? I definitely was. But why was I mentally ill? Because I had an abusive alcoholic father, and the family dynamics growing up and a lot of people can relate to that. So, really, who comes from the perfect home? Some do, but a lot of us don't. And a lot of people listening to this are going to be, oh yeah, well, I was screwed up as a kid, and things happen. So, but I really struggled with obsessive compulsive disorder, undiagnosed. I was hospitalized when I was around 10, and all they did was sedate me for 2 months. There was no real therapy or counseling. Thank God we've come so far. We've come so far in our counseling, treatments, medications, education, and so yeah, and so I lived with this OCD and depression, anxiety. I mean, if you got one, you probably got them all to a degree. And yeah, in 89, I almost died, and I prepared for death. And the reason I tell people that is I actually thought I was dying or going to die in minutes. And the reason I stress that is because that is a major trauma. It's a major flip of the switch, unbeknownst to me at the time. I came back in 10, 11 days, stitches came out. People were saying, doctors, retire, take the season off, whatever. No, I got to get back. So I became kind of a cult hero too, which is important to say, because had it not been for that love and support of upstate New York, actually the whole hockey world community, I probably wouldn't have been able to get through the rest of the season. In Buffalo, I epitomized everything they loved in an athlete, like hardworking, gritty, courageous, no talent. It's a blue-collar sports town, and they loved that. And so I got through it, and it was the following season where my life went down. All that adrenaline had kind of worn off. I'd lost a whole bunch of blood, and my physical strength wasn't, I get tired easy, but, next year I'm back and I'm feeling strong. But that's when I started and my point about the trauma is, if you're predisposed to something like anxiety, depression, mental illness, basically, a major traumatic event will make it explode. And that's what happened. The next year I was, panic attacks. My OCD was worse than it had ever been. Definitely nightmares were coming, flashbacks to the accident, the skate coming up, anxiety, like I said, panic attacks, and the depression. Oh man, I was just like, it was everything I could do to roll out of bed, but I had to get to practice. And so that was the beginning of I guess the second chapter of my mental health journey, or mental illness journey, I guess, for me.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting how you say, yep, you were epitomized for what happened, for what they saw on the ice, but then people don't see what came before that or came after that. And that's, when you share your journey, you realize it wasn't just that one thing that happened that contributed to it. There's a number of different things. Thanks for that.
Deb, what's on your mind? I could tell there's smoke coming out of your head.
Thank you. I was so curious because as you're being so vulnerable and willing to share your story in this atmosphere, I'm aware you shared it publicly in your book, and you've shared it publicly in talks that you've given leading up to today. And I wonder, could you talk a bit about, for folks that might only be talking to a counselor or might only be talking to a therapist, what do you see as the benefit that has been held for you in sharing this story publicly? And what do you think the benefit is for others that might come forward and share their story?
Well, there's certain things I do to keep my balance, my mental health balance. Meditation, I learned that, mindfulness, working out, get that endorphin release from working out and that accomplishment feeling. Medication. Yes, I take medication. Some people, I don't want to go on meds. Well, I don't like the alternative because we haven't mentioned yet that I'm a suicide survivor. So I need my meds. I'm on very little now. They scaled me down over the years. And the other thing, if I start spiraling, that hamster wakes up in my head and starts on the treadmill, I'll just call my counselor, make an appointment. I'll get in there. I've done several different therapies. I've been to 2 PTSD retreats. Because of that accident, I had PTSD. I didn't know it was undiagnosed for 20 years until I shot myself. And then I finally got diagnosed with PTSD. But getting kind of back to your question, being of service, whether it's like I'll back up. When I wrote my book, I wrote it to help people because I felt like I survived. I got a bullet in my head. There's a reason I'm still here. God saved me for those that are still struggling. So I wrote the book, and the book was very eye-opening for me because I thought, well, there's people like me, but I had no idea how many Clint Malarchuks are really out there. There are so many people that struggle, and now it's even worse because of COVID. But when I wrote my book, I was getting all these emails and feedback. Thank you. You're my twin. Oh my God, I'm going to get help. I'm going to go talk to somebody. Your story is my life. And I was like, whoa. And it wasn't just a couple of emails. I was getting bombarded. And then, of course, I get into public speaking and people coming up and want to hug and they want to cry and they want to say, you're me, and you're the first one I've ever heard actually tell it all. And so they say, I'm gonna get help. I'm going for counseling. I'm going for therapy. If I need medication, I'll do that. So for me, being a service is what really keeps me going. On that note, with COVID, my public speaking has pretty much been shut down. It's opening up now. But I really struggled because I'm not out there telling my story, getting those hugs, having those tears. And for the first time, people are going, oh my God, I'm going to, because we all suffer in darkness, but more in silence because we think we're the only ones. Or in my case, I knew there was others, but they weren't as sick as me. But there's others out there that struggle. And Mel has shared her stories with me too, and that's great that we can have that conversation, that we can say with vulnerability, yeah, this was me. And she shared hers and I've shared mine. And isn't that gratification, Mel? Like, don't you just feel like, oh, somebody's relating to me?
Mm-hmm. And it is surprising how much people think no one understands until you start talking and you realize, okay, people do understand. I know you understand. It makes a difference.
And I think with us that are sufferers, we fear the like it's shameful, and it shouldn't be, because does a diabetic feel shameful? No. So why is the chemical imbalance of my brain different than the chemical imbalance of the pancreas or the insulin production?
Such a valid statement.
It's just a different organ, but there's shame associated with mental illness. And that is, we're getting better. We're getting rid of the stigma slowly. We're chipping away. And this is why we do these type of, meetings and interviews, is to let people know there is no shame and you are not alone. In fact, there's a lot of us. I mean, a lot of us that struggle. And the sad part is most, live in silence and darkness, just thinking, oh, I'm ashamed to tell anybody. Well, get over that, please, please.
Such a valid position that you are coming from, and to be so truthful, the genuineness that I experienced in the words that you're sharing with us today, they're touching my soul. So thank you for being so open.
Well, thank you.
Wow. Well, Clint, I learned of you as a single story because we had a AAA goalie son in our family. And of course, I knew you through the accident. But as I started with Distress Center Halton and my time with mental health, there are so many layers to your story. There's so many layers to you. And I'll echo everyone with your vulnerability. And your suicide, was, the second time you nearly lost your life. And you're a survivor.
Oh,
and
that was the third. That was the third. I've almost died 3 times.
Really?
Now, one's not publicized in my book, but it's,
Yeah.
I OD'd on painkillers.
I think
Accidentally. It wasn't a suicide attempt. I had a severe reaction and my heart stopped. But yeah, I'm a 3-time winner.
hat trick.
Yeah.
Hat trick. So, what would you say are some of the keys to your recovery as a suicide survivor? What would you tell people?
To get help.
Yeah.
Talk, open up. And I would like to say a mental health professional, but if it means talking, if you're a kid, means talking to your parents or a friend, just getting it like somebody knows that I'm not in a good place, and take that first step. But to do that, we got to get over that shame we think that they're associated with it. And again, there is no shame.
No.
There is not. It's an affliction, and it's a tough one. It's terrible. And to struggle the way we do, you don't have to do it alone, but take the first step and tell somebody. And you'd be surprised because at first you're going to go, they're not going to understand. You'll be surprised. You tell a couple people and they're going to look and go, oh my God, me too. Oh, or an adult might go, I went through that time. Maybe I was going through, it might've been somebody going through a divorce or losing a loved one. See, it's not always mental illness. And especially with COVID now, people are experiencing emotional distress.
Yes.
And they've never been depressed or anxious. And with COVID, all this anxiety about my job or my business or the disconnect with people, that one-on-one, and we need that interaction, not over a computer, right? No. Thank God we have this, though. I'm very grateful we can still interact this way, but it's not our normal pathways that were built.
Yes.
And so yeah, you're not alone. You'd be surprised how many people are going to go, oh my God, I'm so glad you shared that with me, because I've been going through this very similar, little different, maybe not, whatever, but you just got to trust that people are out there that are struggling just like you. So don't do it alone. And we got so many resources now, which you all know and you're a part of, right, to reach out, take that first step and make that phone call to a professional, not a company, but, groups like you guys are running.
Yeah.
Because you're there for a reason. You're there to help. You're not there to judge or shame. No. You are there to, arms open, come on in. We got this. We will walk this together, not alone, but together. That's what we do.
It's so true. And, as I'm thinking, you've just basically answered one of my questions so eloquently here in what you've just shared. And I just wanted to say that I think it is incredibly impactful when someone is able to speak with lived experience the way that you are. And, it's scary to say those first words. It's scary to reach out sometimes because you are worried about being judged. You are worried about being labeled. You are worried about not being seen as a whole being, only being seen as the mental health presentation. So I just love what you just shared with people that might watch.
That's all you stated it very, very well. But you and I and all of us on this panel know that's not the truth. You're not going to be judged.
That's right.
But we think we are. So we're afraid. Well, trust us, you're not going to be judged. You're not going to be shamed. In fact, you're going to probably go, oh my God, you're so courageous. I'm glad you came forward. You're going to get a flood of support. Believe it or not, I would just believe it. You're going to have people like you guys and even myself, even though I'm not, trained like you guys, but we're going to be there for you.
So I would just dare to say back to you, training in real life lived experience often outweighs anything someone can read in a book. I just want to say that.
Well, I'm real proud too, because over COVID, I was isolated like everybody. And I thought, what can I do? And everybody said, well, Clint, you talk to so many people that I've never met. They'll email me and I'll say, well, just call me. And, they're struggling. And I call, and I'm not a counselor and I just offer support. But I did take advantage of the COVID to take online courses and become an advanced certified life coach.
Oh, wow.
And
that's amazing.
And basically, that is just helping and supporting and guiding people. And everybody, my friends that know me and they see me on the phone all the time and they're going, man, who are you talking to? I said, I don't know, some guy in New York. He's really struggling. So I was doing that for years. And so then people were saying, why don't you get a certification in that? And so I did. I took advantage of being stuck here, not public speaking, and did that. And I was really proud of that because I was starting to sink into the depression, the isolation. And, at the time I was living alone here because my wife's mother was in hospice and she was in Texas with her. And I could have just laid in bed all day. No one would know. And I was like, no, you're not going to go down this. And it was hard. I'm not saying it was easy. Oh, I'm just going to go, take a course. No, I had to find some self-motivation to do that rather than go down that rabbit hole.
Mhm.
It's interesting you mentioned that about the importance of opening up, because I know, you shared that. I've shared my story with you. So I myself also live with an anxiety disorder. And when I started thinking, I'm going to open up about this, I'm going to start talking about it a lot more. You were the first one, Clint, that got the whole version. I remember saying, if I write this down, can I share this with you? And you said, absolutely, we're ready to hear it. And it's amazing, again, when you do start sharing that, people say, wow, this is great. Like, thanks for sharing with me. It's not that stigma that often we really fear.
No.
It makes a big difference.
Oh, it's incredible. Like, I cannot stress enough the feedback that I've gotten since I wrote my book or have been speaking, that I have not had one person say, you're just a weak person, pull your sock, suck it up. Or I've never had that. Yeah. And if I did, I'd just knock the guy out.
Yeah. But, I'm not sure I'd be quite able to do that. There's a little bit of a difference between me and Clint.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've not had that reaction from anybody. In fact, it's the opposite. They think, well, thank you for your courage. Thank you for being a leader and an advocate for mental wellness.
Yeah.
Total opposite. So again, what I think our whole meeting today is we're telling people, you're not alone. Just do it. Take that first step, because we care. We understand. We totally get it. We relate. We empathize. We're compassionate. But it's funny when before you do that, you're stuck in that, oh, I don't know, I'll be judged. Oh, shame. No, people, it doesn't work that way. Not in my experience.
No, I have to say, I've read your book a couple times. We've chatted a number of times. I've heard you speak several times. So one question I want to ask you, and then I'll turn it over to Dara for our last question, is what is something that you think people maybe don't know about mental health or about suicide that you really wish that they knew? what is one of those like really important messages you say if people could leave with kind of one thing or learning one new thing? What do you think that would be?
Well, that's deep. That one thing is, again, I'm just going to go back and it would like the suicide part, and a lot of suicides are just overdoses. People get to a point they're self-medicating because they're depressed, anxiety, and I totally understand that because that's why I drank. Is I get anxious. Well, a couple of beers will fix that, or I'm depressed, but a few beers will make me happy, or and then we get into that addiction part, which now we got two problems. And it's like, you don't have to do that. Again, we have the resources, the suicide prevention. We got the hotlines, and that would be so hard to pick up the phone. I get that. But as a suicide survivor, I just want to tell people, I am so grateful that I'm alive.
We're grateful too. We're grateful too.
And
We're so grateful.
I haven't met a suicide survivor. I meet a lot of them because of what I do. I have not met a suicide survivor that has said, I met one that, and now she's doing good. So if I talk to her again today, she'd probably agree with my statement is, I have not met a suicide survivor that isn't grateful that it didn't work.
Yeah.
And that's important to hear. So that one thing is, I was lucky. I should be dead. And, you don't shoot yourself and have a bullet lodged in your skull. So I really should be dead. And every suicide survivor, again, is grateful they're not dead, that it's such a cry for help. And it took that drastic of a measure, whether you tried to die by suicide with a gun, overdose, pills, I don't want to go into too much because it gets graphic, but that it didn't work. We're all so happy that for the grace of God that we're here.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that earlier in your conversation with us, you said early on to us today that you realize you're here for a reason.
Yeah.
That you were saved for a reason.
I found my purpose. A lot of people, I always say my purpose was, I'm in the NHL. I got the world by the tail, yet I'm struggling with depression and anxiety and OCD. And God, why am I, take this away. I should be happy. I guess my point is, even at the highest level I was playing, my life goals are being realized. I was mentally ill. And I was struggling with anxiety, depression, and OCD. Because that just goes to tell you how painful and deep this disorder goes. Somebody growing up a Canadian kid, making it to the NHL, playing in the NHL, and not happy, struggling with mental illness. That mental illness has got no boundaries, man. And you can't let it go. You can't leave it unaddressed. You have to address it. And again, going back to, you finally get help because you survived a suicide. Well, don't go there. Get the help now, because you might not survive like I did. Or the addiction will kill you. The self-medicating and I totally get that. I went through that too. So yeah, don't wait. Pick up the phone, make the call, make an appointment, talk to your parents, talk to your spouse, and just say, look, I just got to be honest about something. And right away, you get big credibility because you're going to be honest about something, and you got the courage to say something that for you is extremely difficult, but for them to hear is probably not as tough, because they're going to go, I saw you didn't seem like you're doing well. Or the other side of it is, we're great actors and we totally blindside people. And I was that actor. I could turn that switch on and off, go to the rink, practice, clown teammate, walk back to my truck, start driving home, and boom, all that anxiety or depression or whatever I was dealing with that day would just start eating at me again. and it grows. I think it's like alcoholism or addiction is a progressive disease. I think mental illness is too. So don't let it progress. And that's just my own opinion. But I think the longer we let it sit in there and fester, we just get darker. And so, you know, we're just here to say, all of us here, all four of us here are here to say, don't let that, because you don't have to. You have a choice. You're not stuck. And there is ways to live and be happy and healthy and productive. I'm not going to tell you that I still don't have bad days. I do. But I've got tools that I've learned to get through it. Like one of them is working out. And I mentioned that, like, the earlier in the day that I can work out, like I'm not feeling good. I'm anxious or I'm depressed. And if I got a little gym right here in my barn, so it's convenient. I can walk out and just start. I roll pretty good after that. And I do a morning meditation as well, which also helps me on those bad days. I'm like, I don't even want to do this, but I do it. And then I roll pretty good.
That's amazing. I think that's so helpful to sort of understand that you have regular sort of routine practices that support your ongoing mental health, and that it's okay to be saying, I still struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I everybody does though.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm struggling, I go, okay, it might be a little worse than somebody that doesn't have the chemical imbalance, the serotonin production or whatever. So it might be a little worse than, but again, with this COVID, I think we're all in the same boat. Everybody's experienced it. Depression, anxiety, you know, things like that. So we're all in it together. You're not alone. None of us are.
No, your stories are so powerful, and we're going to have to wrap it up, but I watched so many of your videos and your TED Talk, and just the messages you tell, the stories you share, your honesty, your transparency, and I was a bit overwhelmed by how strong you are. So I want to thank you for sharing all of this with us. But just tell us a little bit about what you're doing now for mental health and suicide awareness. Because
wait a minute, you said there was the last question 3 questions ago.
Yeah.
I was just admiring you. It was
This is how we roll, you know.
Your videos are out there, because I don't think our viewers are going to have enough of you. So,
I'm totally kidding. So I already forgot the question. What is it? What?
Tell us. I mean, you've written the books, but tell us what you're doing now for mental health and suicide awareness to the public. Just summarize that as we say goodbye, because you're out there.
I'm involved with the local group here in Gardnerville, Nevada, with suicide prevention. In fact, we have a Dancing with the Stars fundraiser coming up. I can't make it, but I put my wife in, so that's cool. She has to dance. And, you know, obviously I talk to a lot of people, support people. I try not to say, I can tell them what worked for me and what didn't work for me, but, you know, again, I'm not a counselor, but I support people. So I'm on the phone a lot. I'm meeting people a lot. I'm the vice president of we're in the baby steps. Well, we're actually putting a little out there right now, is the ranch. teammatesforlife.org for, you know, it's actually for veteran hockey players that are struggling with brain injuries or mental illness or addiction, or, well, if you got one, you got them all, really. You know, but so I'm really involved heavily with that. And you know, we say it's for veteran hockey players. No, it's also for military veterans and the guy and girl next door. We're not going to turn anybody back, but we have our niche is hockey. You know, that's who I was. So yeah, I do that. Public speaking is picking up a little bit, which I'm totally grateful for. So yeah, I'm going to Minnesota Tuesday. I give a couple talks because they had a horrific gun incident from a mentally ill person in Buffalo, Minnesota. And then I'm going to the ranch, which is in Minnesota, and doing some fundraising. We got some events going on for a few days. So that's what I try to do. And, you know, let's get rid of this COVID so we can do it more.
Living your purpose,
Well, yeah. Again, I think I got off track on that purpose thing. My purpose of being a hockey player and everything, and that's what and then a coach, bonus, bing, 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 NHL. No, that just gave me a platform. I went through so much mental illness all while I was doing that stuff. My purpose was to have gone through that, to survive the suicide. So I know what I'm talking about, that I have my purpose. My purpose is to be a mental health advocate.
Yeah.
The NHL gave me a platform, and the demons I've fought and still fight sometimes gives me something I know a little bit about because I've lived it.
Well, thank you, because I feel absolutely privileged to have been here with you today, watching you and hearing you join and share this story with others.
It's been my pleasure, girls.
I could definitely recommend, if you haven't read Clint's book, it's called The Crazy Game. Amazing. The word that always comes to mind with that is just honest and genuine.
Hey, Mel, I can barely read, yet I wrote a book.
And we're glad you did. We're glad you did, because it's amazing. So I highly suggest picking that up. Also, fingers crossed we'll be able to get back to in person again. If anyone ever gets a chance to see Clint speak, amazing. Again, I've seen him several times and always take something new away.
Oh, thanks, shucks.
And so glad that you were willing to join us today. And thank you so much for being.
Go to my website, people, Malarchuk.com, the cowboy goalie. And, there's a lot of my interviews on there. There's resources that I put out there, and, you can always email me. We can chit chat. I'll give you a phone call, whatever.
Amazing. Thank you. So thanks to everyone for joining us for this episode of Connect with HSPC. I felt like we could have talked all day, but definitely, again, check out Clint's website, book, speaking, whatever you can. So just a reminder for the Halton Suicide Prevention Coalition, our website is haltonspc.ca. Feel free to check it out, see some of our other interviews, and see the great things that Deb and Darren, our amazing team, are doing out in the community. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.